With update v64 rolling out to the Quest 3s, it's amazing as people are still discovering things that were added that Meta didn't announce in the official blog. We already covered how furniture recognition was looking much more promising, finding that it could auto map things in your room like doors and sofas, with mixed results, but still a fantastic step up for room mapping. Multimodal. Multimodal is a feature that's been in experimentation on a while for the Quest. If you don't know what that is, basically instead of switching from controllers to hand tracking, it was set up to where you could have one hand and one controller, switch back and forth, and the headset would quickly figure this out, which was especially helpful for the Quest Pro controllers because they sometimes had a long period of lag when you'd first pick them up. The last 2 months, they've been able to actually put this in apps, but now with v64, it's even been added to the home space. You might have noticed this if you had v64 and all of a sudden it seemed like things were getting a little weird, not what you were used to, between moving your hands, grabbing your controllers, putting your controllers down. It's a nice feature and does make things a little bit simpler for navigating around, setting them down. Although I do find sometimes it's annoying because I go to pick up my controllers and it shows my hands, and then I use my hands to try and hit continue, but I grab a controller and it's still taking me some getting used to personally. But that said, I'm excited to see more of the developers hopefully start incorporating this into games. It would be really cool to see a hand track game where you keep a controller at your side and you can grab it as a sidearm, or maybe one where you leave the controller on a table in front of you and you play something like roulette. You see your real hands, but then you pick up the gun. For mixed reality as well, it's nice to see an easier transition back and forth if you're grabbing your controllers and still seeing at least your virtual hands overlaid over your real hands. But I'm curious out there, if anyone's seen any good uses of multimodal, let me know in the comments because I would love to play around with it more. If you're unfamiliar with Haptics, they're one of the first companies that has dropped a haptic vest with point accuracy. So this means that instead of just feeling vibrations like you would with the controller, you could actually feel if you were shot from your 4 o'clock position or in your lower left side of your abdomen. Now they are announcing they have officially partnered up with Meta and getting the Made for Meta badge. Haptics has had integration with quite a few games on the Quest for a while, but this is a big step to actually have a vest that officially is supported for the Quest. And to celebrate, they're doing 20% off their TaxSuit X40 and their X16 vests. I've got to try Haptics vests, and they even are making gloves now too. We got to check these out at CES this year and do some demos, and it's really cool to be able to feel things touch back in VR. It really shows that we are on that direction towards eventually possibly full body haptics where you feel everything that's going on in virtual reality. A big congratulations for them on the partnership. A thank you to Haptics for sponsoring the news today, and there will be some links down in the description in the comments if you want to check these out while they're on sale. We reported to you last month how on March 21st the Quest 2 went on sale to its lowest price point yet, seeing the 128 gig at $200, the 256 at $300, and also all of the accessories dropping to lower prices. At least the first party Meta accessories, the ones that I don't really recommend anyways. But now on a Meta blog today, they have announced that not only did they put these as sale prices a month ago, but as of today, these are permanent price reductions, and all of these prices are gonna stay steady. That means a Quest 2 128 will only cost $199 from now on, and if there's a sale, it could get even cheaper than that. This, of course, coupled with the information that we've seen the Quest 2 selling out certain places, certain models of them selling out, is only fueling the fire that maybe there is a Quest 3 Lite coming to replace this Quest 2, and maybe it's soon, as it looks like they're really pushing to sell out of the stock on everything Quest 2 they have. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of little things that are pointing towards that, but I wonder if you're out there and you're thinking about a VR headset, does a Quest 2 at $200 tempt you more? Or if there's a Quest 3 Lite on the horizon, are you going to try and hold out and see what's possibly coming? I'll leave some links down below in case you do want to jump on any of these sale prices while they are a good price, because even if you already had a Quest 3 and you just want an extra Quest to play multiplayer with friends when they come over, a $200 Quest 2 is a pretty good deal to be able to do that. We keep you up to date with software updates for the Quest, even Meta Horizon's 157th update or something, and now even the Quest browser is continuing to get updates that they're saying is actually making it about 15% faster. It's the latest update, 32.3 for this, and due to optimizations, they've been able to get this performance boost and adding an experimental PDF reader. I'm not someone that uses my Quest personally for much internet browsing, but it's interesting to see that they're figuring out ways to make the code run faster. I would love to hear from some of you out there if you are someone who works on your Quest. Does this help you that the browser actually does, or are you typically just using the Quest as virtual monitors attached to a PC? I would imagine that's more the case, but I suppose on the go, if somehow you were really using your Quest for work now, being able to open PDF files with this experimental plugin would be helpful, and usually these things eventually end up making it to the app. So it's good to see that they're still making steps in the right direction, although I feel like the Quest browser is such a random thing to be using. Into the Radius is one of my top picks for brutal, realistic survival sims on the Quest, and Into the Radius 2 is one of my most anticipated games because of that. We've been talking about it for a minute coming up, but now we know it's actually going to hit Steam Early Access as soon as this summer. A new trailer shows off some exciting exciting new features they're adding to it. Probably the biggest one for me is co-op between multiple players. Although Steam Early Access means if you are a Quest user, you're either going to have to wait or you're going to have to hook this up to a PC to check it out for $40 this summer 2024, while the full release is still slated for late 2025 of next year. This new game is promising co-op with up to 4 players. They're talking about bringing back a lot of the original mechanics from the first one, but additional lore, anomalies, gameplay mechanics, and a whole bunch more weapons. If you haven't seen anything on Into the Radius, I showed off how it has just some of the most realistic gun mechanics out there when it comes to how the guns work and literally loading your own bullets one bullet at a time. Granted, there was faster ways to do it, but I love the realism of this game. I'm looking forward to Into the Radius too. A Township Tale was such a light and beautiful game that it's quite a surprise to see their next trailer for their game is a dark fantasy VR game. Project 2 has been dropping some developer logs showing off what the game might look like, and at a glance it really reminds me of Dungeons of Eternity if you checked out that dungeon crawler on Quest. It is very early in this news, so really beyond the trailer we don't know a whole lot about what they're called. Obviously the name Project 2 I can't imagine is the final game name either, but it almost feels like, looking at the trailer to me, if you took a Township Tale, you took it underground into the dungeons and then played it in what looks to be multiplayer together. It has me interested and excited for the future of that studio's development. As more and more of the original executives over at Beat Games that makes Beat Saber, which was purchased by Meta, keep stepping out, the future of it has been a little uncertain. But with that, they recently dropped a full hip-hop mixtape track pack, which actually includes uncensored versions of the tracks. Now there is a toggle inside of Beat Saber where you can either toggle explicit lyrics on or off, but this was kind of a surprise as there has been a lot of previous tracks that were on there just automatically censored. Some newer hip hop tracks and some classics. This was a pretty exciting one for me to see come out on the store. People say really often Beat Saber is just too much EDM, so it's good to see them branching out a bit more, especially as they added other bands like Queen recently. I do wonder though, with the ability to download tracks, how many of you out there actually pay for these song packs when they come out? Although a lot of articles have been doom and gloom for the PSVR 2, it's still getting some games that look really promising, one of which is a very Minecraft-esque game called Cube VR. And as Sony publishes their most downloaded games each month, it was easy to see in March that Cube topped it between the US, Canada, and EU. No surprise, other ones on the list: Beat Saber, Pavlov, Among Us. Of course, this news coming on the heels that Sony is figuring out ways to possibly have the PSVR 2 work with PC or at least with Steam games, and even other not so great news how a game like Rec Room is saying that they aren't going to make a PSVR 2 version because it's not financially viable. This was a game that came out and did get me excited, although an actual Minecraft game and more of a VR version than what we saw in the PSVR one would be a lot bigger of a deal and much more of a system seller, but it still shows me that maybe there's reason to hang on to my PSVR 2 for now. As we continue to talk about the certainty or uncertainty of the future of different VR headsets or the VR space in general, there is some positive headlines saying that surveys are showing that there's actually a spike in the use of VR devices by teens in the US, showing a more promising future, especially if more young people are interested in VR as they grow up further and have spending power to spend into it. The Piper Sandler report had findings that 33% of teens in the US own VR devices, of which 13% use them at least once a week. A figure like 1 in 3 teens owning a VR headset isn't that surprising, especially as the Quest 2 has dropped in price even further and is now down to $200. And as we mentioned earlier, that is the new permanent price of the Quest 2. So it's exciting to see that the future is continuing to show more possibilities, especially as we're seeing more technologies talking about the use of VR possibly in education and the future. But that's where I'd love to turn the question over to you. What do you think about this? If you have a headset, how often are you actually using it? Are you someone who uses it at least once a week? Do you use it more often? And if you do, is that because you do work on it, you do fitness, or is it really the gaming that keeps you that engaged? It's great to have mostly positive stuff we're talking about in the VR space again, a lot of exciting news and a good looking year ahead. Let me know how you're feeling about it in the future or what you're looking forward to in the comments down below so I can talk more with you there. Thank you, and I'll see you in another reality.